Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of Just Trying to Survive and Learn to Love Along the Way. This will be Part 12, Chapters 22 and 23. Chapter 22 of Heroes and Killers. It's not until the 5th day of internships that Izuku brings Ida up to Shoda. He's tried getting in contact with him every day since the train station, but he's just been left on red every time. He finally remembered why Hosu is so important, too. It's because of the hero killer Stain. He's there right now, and he attacked Ida's brother. Usually the other boy is very rational, but he's been acting different ever since the attack on his brother. So Izuku does what he hopes is the right thing and brings it up to Shoda one morning over breakfast. If you're so concerned, we can head over there tonight for a patrol and check on him. Really? You're the best. Izuku shoots forward and hugs the man, then realizes what he did and runs away to hide in his room like a little coward. He spends most of the day distracted, anxiously worrying about Ida, and he can't help the feeling that something's going to go horribly wrong before they can even get there. It makes him sloppy in training, and he can tell that Shoda and Hisashi are going a little easier on him today. 6 o'clock finds all three of them on the train in their hero costumes. There aren't many people in the same car as them, and Izuku is grateful. Crowds are annoying. Izuku finds that he was unfortunately right to think that something would happen when a Nomu carrying a hero crashes into their train car. All three of them rush forward to the scene, and the Nomu jumps out, back towards wherever he came from. Janus, stick with Present Mike. If you get separated, you have permission to use your quirk to protect yourself and others. And Eraserhead is gone, jumping out of the hole in the side of the train to follow the creature. Let's go, listener. He and Hisashi follow suit after checking on the injured pro, heading towards the chaos in the city. There are a few heroes trying to combat the Nomus and protect civilians, but they jump in to help evacuate people anyways. Ida, where'd you go? Izuku whips around and finds Pro Hero Manual calling out for his friend. Shit, he must have gone after the hero killer and all this chaos. Zashi, I have to find Ida. I think he's in trouble. Hisashi gives him a calculating look before answering. Call if you get into trouble. Now go help your friend. Izuku nods gratefully, relieved he won't be sneaking off to find Ida. He runs away from the chaos, but feels like he's running to his doom. The hero killer lurks in quiet back alleyways to attack his victims, and that's exactly where Izuku finds them. Ida and Pro Hero Native are frozen on the ground, the hero killer ready to plunge a sword into his friend. No! Stain pauses in his actions and looks to Izuku. He starts ranting some nonsense about true heroes and how All Might is the best. Izuku doesn't pay much attention to what he's saying, slipping his hand behind his back to send out his location to everyone in his contacts, in the hopes that someone will get here in time. He knows that he cannot handle this on his own. He refocuses just as Stain is lunging for him, and he barely dodges the blade in time. Stain keeps attacking, and it takes all of Izuku's skill to avoid being cut. Ida starts yelling at him to leave, saying that this isn't Izuku's problem, and that's just enough of a distraction for Stain to nick his cheek with his blade, and he watches in horror and disgust as the man brings the blade up to his lips and licks his blood off. Izuku drops, all mobility cut off. He can't move anything, and starts to panic a little as he sees Stain walk closer to him. There's a boot in his side, and it pushes him onto his back, and Stain is there, standing over him, tapping his sword against Izuku's chest. I might just let you live, little hero. Coming to save your friend. Trying even though he told you to leave. Seems like you've got the makings of a true hero." And with that, Stain is walking away, back towards Ida, and Izuku can't even turn his head to see what's happening. "No! Stop it! He's just a student! Please, don't kill him!" Izuku continues his mantra, mindlessly, tears falling from his eyes as he can do nothing but listen to Stain's footsteps from his position on the ground. "God, do you ever shut up? Maybe I'll kill you anyways. Make your friend watch so he knows it's all his fault." Stain is back in his peripherals now, sword dangling lazily in his hand. There's a chill in the air as he lifts his sword, only to be knocked back by a slab of ice. "Can't you be a little more specific, Janus? I was almost too late." Midoriya sighs in relief at the sound of Todoroki's voice. He hadn't even known his friend was in Hosu. "Oh great, another false hero. Let's see if you fare any better." At that, Stain is lunging toward his friend, and Izuku is struggling, trying to will his muscles to move. He can hardly see what's happening, only able to move his eyes. His finger twitches. A few more minutes and he can move again, though Ida and Native are still immobile on the ground. Maybe something to do with blood type. Izuku moves as quietly as he can towards the fight and powers up One for All. He aims the kick he's practiced the most at the back of Stain's head, but the man moves at the last second. His foot still makes contact, catching him in the shoulder and pushing him away from Todoroki. They work together then, trying to use what they know of each other's quirks to make it work. It doesn't. Izuku has gotten faster. Spreading his quirk through his body has allowed him to gain some speed. However, Todoroki doesn't know that, and manages to catch Izuku with his fire, burning through part of his costume before he can put it out. They're a little more cautious after that, but it's only a matter of time before they slip up. And they do so, spectacularly. Izuku is moving far faster than anyone should on ice, and he slips, careening towards his friend. Todoroki shoves himself out of the way and right towards Stain, who gives him a long slice up the arm. Todoroki collapses as the man swallows his blood, and then it's just Izuku against a serial killer. Again. He's getting tired. He's been using his quirk far too much. He doesn't have anything else to fight Stain with. He is terrible with the capture weapon, so they opted to leave it at home tonight. Maybe Izuku should ask his guardians to show him how to use other weapons as well. He's slowing down now, and Stain can tell. He's basically playing with him at this point. Izuku trips up and falls to the ground, and Stain is there, pushing his sword into his thigh until Izuku can feel it pierce the skin on the other side. And he's screaming himself hoarse at the pain. It's agonizing. The man takes his time pulling his sword out, intent on causing Izuku the most pain he can. He hasn't licked his blood yet, but Izuku still feels paralyzed. He is crying now, and all he can manage to do is groan at the pain. He can hear his friends yelling at Stain, maybe even hears his own name in there. But he's in too much pain to even pay attention. Izuku feels the moment the man licks the blade, and he's walking away again, back towards Ida. "Wait, don't kill him." He's quiet, thick with tears, and he's barely able to hear his own voice, but Stain somehow does. "Jesus, kid, where's your sense of self-preservation?" Izuku doesn't reply, opting to keep up his quiet complaints, no longer aware of what he's saying. "Shut the fuck up!" There's a harsh kick to his head, snapping it to the side so that Izuku faces the mouth of the alleyway instead of his friends. He hadn't even been aware that Stain was that close to him. But now he's all too aware, as the man once again presses the tip of his sword against Izuku's chest. The pain in his thigh combined with the pain in his head makes him want to vomit. He takes deep breaths and ignores the sound of Stain monologuing again, He's hoping for one last bit of luck, hoping that someone else is on their way to the alley, that someone can stop Stain before he kills them. Izuku narrows his eyes and catches sight of two figures at the mouth of the alleyway. Chapter 23 of Flying and Falling. Shoda tries not to worry as he leaves his family behind in the train. Zashi is a pro hero, and Izuku is a smart kid. He knows not to run off. Shoda struggles against the Nomu he followed. His quirk is not offensive and does absolutely nothing against the creature. It's awfully similar to the one from the USJ attack, and it took all might to beat it. He manages to wrap his scarf around the Nomu and decides to try stabbing the thing's brains out. He stabs it once and tries to wrench his knife free, but it refuses to move. The Nomu is still standing and leaps off of the building they landed on. Shoda has to unwind his scarf quickly so he doesn't get dragged along with the creature. It's fast, and now it's running away with Shoda's third favorite knife. He's about to follow when he gets a text. A glance at his phone tells him it's from Izuku, so he opens it. All it is a location. Shit. Shoda hopes that he's still with Hisashi. Maybe his husband asked him to stay back and call for help. He runs in the direction of Izuku's location and hopes there are some other heroes nearby. He's too far to be able to provide an immediate response, but he'll do his best. Too much time later, when he's only halfway there, he meets up with Hisashi, and they pale at the sight of each other. That means that Izuku is by himself, probably facing the hero killer if he went to help Ida, which is exactly something he would do. They're almost to Izuku when they hear the screams. The person has to be in immense pain, and it only gets louder as they get closer to their destination. They listen to the heart-wrenching screams turn into sobs, and both move a little faster when they recognize those soft cries. They belong to Izuku. They freeze in the mouth of the alleyway that holds their son. Pro-hero Native and Ida are near one of the walls, sprawled on the ground. Todoroki is a little closer, leaned up against the opposite wall. All three of them are yelling, trying to stop Stain. Stain, who stands over Izuku, with a sword pointed at his chest. Izuku, who's bloody and crying, and staring right at them. Shoda reactively activates his quirk as they start moving. It's got to be some sort of paralytic, because the moment he does, Todoroki is springing up and shoving Stain away from Izuku, stopping to stand protectively in front of him. Ice and fire, both at the ready. Everyone covers their ears as Hisashi yells, making Stain drop his weapons. Shoda is quick to tackle him. He's been married to Hisashi long enough that he's used to the screaming, so he uses that to his advantage, and strips Stain of all of his weapons before tying him up with zip ties and rope, finishing it off with his capture weapon. Hisashi doesn't stop yelling until the man is secure, and once he is, they're both rushing to Izuku's side. Native and Ida are helping each other up, and Todoroki is already standing, so they focus all their worry on their son. He's bleeding from a deep cut on his leg, and a closer look tells Shoda that it even pierced the skin on the other side. Hisashi puts pressure on the wounds as he digs some gauze out of his utility belt, wrapping it as tightly as he can. Izuku still hasn't made a sound, and he's blinking sluggishly at them from his spot on the ground. There's a dark bruise on the side of his head. It must have been a hard hit if Izuku is this out of it. Jesus, problem child. How hard did you hit your head? I didn't hit it. He kicked me. Stain kicked a child in the head? Great. Now Shoda has the urge to commit a murder. Shoda turns to address the rest of the alleyway, finding them all much closer than before. Here's what we're going to do. We are moving out of the alleyway and to the road so that it's easier for emergency services to find us. While we make our way there, I'll get you to call them, Todoroki. We need several ambulances and the police." Todoroki nods and pulls out his phone to do his part. Hisashi scoops up Izuku, their kid's head resting against its chest. He's a little more alert now and sits up a little straighter as he watches Shoda drag Stain down the alley. They reach the end and all sit down to wait, and more pros show up and take custody of Stain so that Shoda and Hisashi can focus on Izuku. Shoda's head snaps up at a loud cry of warning, and he spots a flying Nomu diving towards the group of heroes. It slows down, claws extended, as the heroes try to duck out of its path. Shoda can feel the rustle of its feathers as it snatches Izuku from between them. Izuku lets out a loud cry as he's being flown away. Everyone just stands there, frozen for a moment, before Hisashi's cry snaps them out of it. "Sho! Get ready to catch!" Oh, he can see where this is going. There's almost no way for him to land safely with his child in his arms. "Todoroki, need your help with the landing." And Shoda's running, looping his scarf around a light post to launch himself into the air and towards the flying duo. As soon as Shoda's airborne, Hisashi screams. It's the loudest he's heard him in a long time, worry for Izuku, making him that much deadlier. The Nomu screeches and releases Izuku, trying to get away from the sound. But Hisashi pitched it just right that the creature's brain explodes before it can escape. Shoda catches Izuku almost as soon as it drops him, and lightly lands on the ramp that Todoroki created to catch them. Shoda supports Izuku in his arms as Hisashi starts running over and grimaces at the new wounds. The Nomu must have really wanted him, because fresh blood seeps out of marks on his abdomen, where the hybrid had sunk in its claws. There's a worrying amount of blood, and Shoda knows that the ambulance is still a few minutes out. Izuku is hardly conscious, trying to keep his eyes open. There's a sudden heat at his side, and Endeavor is there, placing a hand on his shoulder, right as Hisashi arrives. "Want me to fly him to the hospital? It will be much faster than waiting for the ambulance." Shoda wants to say no, wants to say that he can take his own son to the hospital. But he can't, and he knows that. "Please." With his quiet word, Endeavor is crouching down, pulling Izuku carefully into his arms, and launching into the sky before Shoda can even blink. The ambulances for the other kids and Native arrive a few minutes later, so Shoda and Hisashi ride along with them. They should probably make sure their students are all right anyways. They find Endeavor waiting for them at the entrance, and he's quick to give them an update, while his own son gets checked out. "They're stitching him up now. Most of the wounds were pretty clean, and miraculously nothing was damaged in his thigh where his worst cut was. It seems as though Stain didn't want to cause him permanent damage. Nothing was bad enough to require surgery, just a lot of stitches." They say anything about the head wound. Endeavor grimaces a little at the question. "It's a bad concussion. He'll be fine, just a little messed up for a few days." While that's not ideal, it's something they can manage. Shoda nods his thanks to Endeavor, and the man leaves to find his son. Shoda turns around and finds Hisashi with a frown on his face, worry creasing his brow. While they know that Izuku will be fine, it's hard finding someone in the position they did, especially their son. Shoda leans forward and wraps his arms around his husband, hugging him tightly. Hisashi pulls away and leans down for a soft kiss before they separate, keeping their hands connected. "Let's go find our son." All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 23 of Just Trying to Survive and Learn to Love Along the Way. Chapter 24 will be up next. I would love to hear any thoughts and reactions you all had to these two chapters. I think the author does a really great job of conveying Hosu in the way that they did. I like the fact that the way that they're conveying out this entire plot line, there's Shoda and Hizashi, right, are taking the place of what would have potentially been like Gran Torino, right, entering in and being involved in things. And I find it a little bit more realistic that they needed saving to this level, that the pros were the ones who had to step in and finally take down Stain fully. I thought that was great, and I'd love to hear any thoughts that you all have on these ones as well. Looking forward to a recovery period that's going to hopefully be taking place next in these upcoming chapters, where we'll get to see Izuku maybe recovering from this concussion, and hopefully maybe some of those interactions between the students that were involved too. So let me know your thoughts. Just a reminder, the fic is located on AO3, so if you have that opportunity to slide over and leave comments, kudos, and support to the original author, I'm sure it's much appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for listening.